Hello, thank you for joining us on Up to the Minute. I'm Dr. Lana Pigao, Communications Director from Northwest College, and here's where you can find us. We're on the Houston City College District Facebook page and YouTube. We're also on X, LinkedIn, and on HCC TV at noon, 5, and 10 p.m. Monday through Friday. Well, today we're highlighting mental health awareness as we recognize April as Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month. Joining us today is Jessica Bellant, Prevention and Education Director for the Bridge Over Troubled Waters. She'll share details about upcoming events throughout the month, discuss the impact of victim blaming on overall well-being, and explain how the community can help prevent it while supporting survivors with the right resources. So we'll talk with Jessica in about 10 minutes. But first, we're raising awareness for the American Sign Language and Hearing Disability community, while also highlighting the importance of learning new ways to communicate with one another. Roxann Barrera, Coffman, an instructor in the American Sign Language and Interpreting Department, and Kenndi Douglas, Secretary of the ASL Honor Society, join us to share more information about a unique local collaboration between the HCC ASL Honor Society and Chick-fil-A that recently took place here in the Houston area. They're here to share how this event brought the community together and help promote more inclusive real-world communication experience. Well, welcome to the show, Roxann and Kenndi. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
So the event was last night.
Mhm.
Can you tell us what the goal of that partnership was with ASL Honor Society students in Chick-fil-A in Pasadena, because it happened in Pasadena, and what inclusion looks like in a specific workplace setting?
So this event actually came about very organically. We just knew that that Chick-fil-A specifically had a deaf employee. And so we reached out to that employee asking, would you like for us to come and teach your coworkers some sign language? And of course they said yes, but come to find out they have four employees who are deaf.
Really?
Yeah, which I think is
Wow.
really, really nice. So once they gave me the manager's information, we reached out to her and it was just golden from there. Everything felt so easy and so natural. And so we had 12 of the hearing employees come out yesterday on their day off. They're not open on a Sunday. And for 2.5 hours, we taught them sign language, basic signs. Well,
Wow.
actually not me. They did it all.
Well, I love that they're enthusiastic about learning
Oh, yeah.
sign language so that they can better communicate with their teammates. That's
Mhm.
really wonderful. Well, how does teaching hearing staff basic American Sign Language change day-to-day communication with their deaf coworkers? And what kinds of barriers does it help overcome?
So really our goal was for belonging and inclusion. We
Mhm.
wanted the deaf employees there to feel included and just to create a more inclusive environment for them. So even things such as simple as signing good morning to your deaf employees will make them feel seen. And so you could probably talk to every deaf person and ask them, what is your work life like? And they will tell you there are communication breakdowns.
Yeah.
And so the fact that we could somewhat remedy that by just supporting that workplace with teaching them basic signs, basic alphabet, numbers, is really very nice. And the people that were there yesterday, they were 100% invested.
Oh,
They were
that's wonderful.
so just they rolled their sleeves up, ready to work, and they were asking really great cultural awareness questions as well.
Wonderful. Well, Kenndi, as Secretary of the ASL Honor Society, what does it mean to you to personally see students using ASL to serve the community in a real-world setting?
I think that it's really great to be able to go out into the community and do these because having access here in college is one thing, but being able to actually go out and see how different people communicate and being able to provide access to them to give them more experience and more of a way to communicate with those coworkers is something that I feel very beneficial and blessed to be able to do.
Wonderful. So how does that experience working directly with the local business like Chick-fil-A demonstrate the idea that language can bring people together beyond the classroom?
Yes, well, it's just like Ms. Kaufman said as well, like access to language is what brings people together. It's what leads to connection. And so being able to go there and teach them signs to help communicate with their coworkers, not only about things like that are on the menu, but to, actually communicate and say things like good morning,
Mhm.
hello, my name is, really actually help to foster building a connection with
Right.
each other. And I really appreciate that our
Mhm.
honor society was able to be involved and
That's
help
good.
foster that.
Roxanne, when my children were small, before they could speak, I used some basic sign language because I was amazed at how well we could communicate when I'd say thank you, or my children love more, mom.
Yes.
And it was it was a barrier
Right.
that we had, but then we crossed that barrier and we were able to communicate with somebody who couldn't speak and communicate, and just kind of cry because I wasn't giving them what they wanted. So I think that's really important. So why is it important to emphasize simple signs like greetings and everyday phrases when you're building that accessible, connected environment?
So I love that you bring up that example because that's exactly what deaf people go through. They're frustrated because they
Mhm.
can't communicate
Right.
with their hearing bosses, coworkers, what they feel, what they want, what they need. And so they have to resort sometimes to writing back and
Writing,
forth.
yeah.
However, we have to remember that English is their second language, ASL is their first language, and English is an auditory language. So it's really hard sometimes for them to
Mhm,
understand. I have cousins that are deaf, and I feel like I didn't truly see their personality until I learned sign language.
Mm.
It's almost like before they were there and I knew them and I know their faces, but it wasn't until I could communicate that I could truly see who they really were personality
Right,
wise.
right.
And that's what we want to do, to have a deeper connection.
Mhm, that's great. Well, Kenny, you mentioned that inclusion starts with willingness. Can you explain what makes Chick-fil-A's location's commitment to better communication with those deaf employees so meaningful to this partnership?
Absolutely. I mean, just the fact as well that they were willing to come out there on their day off, so many of their employees to learn how to communicate with
Mhm.
like their coworkers that they have 4 deaf employees. So the fact that there's over 10 people coming to learn how to communicate with the 4 of them is really powerful, and learning how to be able to communicate with each other, as well as at the time they're also communicating amongst themselves.
Mhm.
As we are teaching them, they're going to their going to their partner and correcting them on how to do certain
Mhm.
things. They're introducing
yeah.
themselves amongst each other. And so it's like they feel inspired to
Uh-huh.
do more of that
Yeah.
because we're able to give them more of the okay and say,
Mhm.
like, these are the things you can do. You can gesture, you can, learn these signs and
Right,
things like
right.
that. And
I never thought that English is their second language. That has never occurred to me until you just said it. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's probably something that I admit also I didn't know until I became more involved in this part of
Mhm.
my life. I didn't realize, but I remember in my first ASL class, I learned that most deaf people graduate on a third to fifth grade reading level.
Mhm.
And I thought that was confusing for me. I'm like, how? Why? But it's because English is their second language
Right.
and it's auditory, and you have to have a strong ASL foundation to have a
Mhm.
strong English foundation. And 90% of deaf people have hearing parents, so they don't
Mhm.
learn sign language till later on in life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's very interesting. Well,
Mhm.
what advice would you give to people who are trying to learn sign language or want to learn sign language?
So my advice would be that if you want to learn sign language, please come to our program. We have ASL 1, 2, and 3, and 4 levels, and
Mhm.
our full-time professor is Danny Worthling, and he is absolutely amazing. So you can always look at our schedule and come and take a class from him.
Mhm.
We also have a lot of adjunct professors, and I believe all of our adjunct professors, aside from our online ASL teachers, are deaf. And so the best way to learn is from a deaf person because it's
Mhm.
their language, it's their
Yeah.
culture. But yes, we have that. And we also have our Honor Society members. We have 12 members altogether right now.
Mhm.
And I know that if you would reach out to me, or I could probably connect you with one of them if you want, if you're interested in that. But we
Mhm.
also have deaf events and ASL events that we can steer you towards if you're more interested in that.
Right. Well, Kenndi, you said that you started ASL in high school. What made you want to continue into college?
That's a great question, honestly. I really, when I had first started, I was just so interested in learning how sign language had worked. I just thought it was so fascinating to have a language without sound to be able to communicate. And once I had got into it, I really fell passionate into it. And as I moved throughout the years, I became more involved with the community and became more involved with my teachers. And they really encouraged me to consider interpreting as a career. And I had never thought about it before. I had only really considered sign language as something that, the deaf community uses, but I hadn't considered, oh yes, like interpreting is something that is a part of that community as well. And so was very excited and motivated to try and continue that trajectory for that
Wow,
career.
that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, both of you. Roxann Barrera Coffman, she's an instructor in the American Sign Language and Interpreting Department here at HCC, and Kenndi Douglas, she's the secretary of the ASL Honor Society organization. And we'll have your department's information in our post after the show. Thank you so much for coming in, ladies. It was a great conversation. I really appreciate it. And coming up after a quick break, we'll talk with Jessica Bellant.
En Houston, siempre planeamos el siguiente paso.
Ese paso comienza en Houston City College.
Del cuidado.
A la creación.
A la promoción.
HCC es la universidad que Houston necesita. Tu siguiente paso es aquí.
Our individual voices are powerful, but not everything has a voice. Let us be a voice to the voiceless. It's time to speak up for nature.
Poison Help is a free 24/7 hotline that answers all of your poison questions in over 100 languages.
Hello, Poison Help?
Hello? When poison happens, we're here for you. Just call Poison Help, 1-800-222-1222.
Welcome back. Now on to our next guest, Jessica Bellant, Prevention and Education Director for the Bridge Over Troubled Waters, here to share the importance of recognizing and spreading awareness for survivors of sexual assault. She also outlines steps to help prevent sexual violence and provides insight into the effects of victim blaming that survivors may experience. Understanding the causes of victim blaming can help connect survivors with a supportive community, valuable resources, and key tools that promote their mental well-being. Welcome back to the show, Jessica.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, as we recognize Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month, why is it important for communities to move beyond awareness and focus on prevention and education?
Yeah, because, unfortunately, we are all touched by sexual violence. Far too many people experience this form of harm. We all know and love someone, if we ourselves are not survivors, who have experienced this form of assault. We know that nearly every minute in our country, someone experiences sexual assault, and every 9 minutes, that person is a child. So we want to focus on prevention because no one should ever experience this form of violence, right? This is the most heinous crime someone can survive, and it really does have lifelong impacts. And so we as a community, this is not, behavior someone is born with. These are learned behaviors to cause this kind of harm. So how we have to learn together as a society, how can we help raise children and individuals who would never think of harming somebody in this way?
Well, Denim Day is widely recognized during this month. Can you explain its origin and what message it continues to send about sexual violence and survivor support today?
Yes, so Denim Day is April 29th of this year. It's a Wednesday, next Wednesday, and it's a very important day for us in our movement in sexual violence because it really does challenge victim blaming. So its origins were from in 1992 in Italy. An 18-year-old had her first lesson for driving instruction and learning to drive, and her driving instructor took her to a secluded area, removed her from the car, and forcibly sexually assaulted her. That driving instructor was arrested and convicted of rape, of sexual assault. But unfortunately, he appealed, and the appeal was upheld, and he was then found not guilty of sexual assault, released from jail. And the reason the judge gave was because, well, it was shared that she was wearing very tight jeans, and so she must have helped to remove the jeans. And so it could not have been sexual assault. It must have been consensual. And so then the next day, in response to this horrific verdict, all the women within the Italian parliament came to work in jeans to say, no, this is not okay. What someone wears does not equal consent.
Yeah, and that goes perfectly into our next question, which victim blaming can often be subtle or even normalized in everyday conversation. And you just explained an example. What are some other real life examples of how it may appear in the media, in relationships, or community settings, or even in the legal system?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we hear a lot of college students say, well, they were drinking a lot. How do you know they didn't want it? They were flirting, they were out having fun. Did they say no? Did they fight back? Did they yell out? Well, they're such a nice guy. Weren't they dating? I mean, these kinds of things are more examples of victim blaming that we hear every day. Well, are they a virgin? How many times have they slept with this person? We hear a lot that there's this assumption that women are lying about sexual assault. There's this belief that there is a significant number of false rape reports. When research tells us that best research shows that false reports range from 2 to 8%, that's international data. But that is on par. That's the same as all other crimes. And yet no one is asking, did that theft really happen? Are they lying? Are they making it up? This is the only crime in which we are assuming victims are lying. And it is such a harmful assumption to make.
Yeah, yeah. Well, from your perspective, what are the broader societal consequences of victim blaming, particularly when it comes to reporting, healing, and access to support services?
Yeah, I mean, it has a horrific silencing effect, right? So if the person, let's say it's a friend or family member who just doesn't fully understand sexual assault and consent, and they're like, well, that just sounds like bad sex, or it sounds like you did kind of want it. That person is probably then not going to go report to the police. They're probably not going to go to the hospital. They're probably not going to seek out to an agency like the Bridge for counseling or support because it's been dismissed. They couldn't have been that. And then unfortunately, sometimes within the legal systems and organizations, sometimes the response is, your story doesn't make sense. It doesn't sound like this actually happened. And survivors are consistently disbelieved by many different people. And so when this happens, the process for justice and the process for healing can be stopped. Because, well, if these people don't believe me, why would I continue through this excruciating process of reliving what I've been through to try to prove what happened to me really did happen? We know that right after an assault, or during an assault, our memory center shuts down. And so we can't remember right away all of the details. And yet that is what's expected when we report sexual assault. And so understandably, sometimes it's like, this doesn't make any sense. But it takes time. Memories do fully come back. And so we really have to challenge ourselves to, at first, always believe. No one wants to be a sexual assault survivor. Always believe them.
Right. So for individuals who may not know how to respond in the moment, what are some respectful and effective ways to challenge victim blaming when they hear it? And you just said, believe them. What else can folks do to help a victim?
Yeah, so we hear victim blaming statements from friends, family, coworkers, all kinds of people, right? And I think sometimes when we have the relationship, it's easier. Whoa, like what you just said, that's really harmful. I don't know if you know this, but here's what our research is. Here's what we know are facts, and your belief, this idea, it's just not it's not true. And this belief leads to survivors who've gone through this horrific assault to not share and to not get help, to not reach out for justice. This keeps sexual violence thriving when we have these attitudes and beliefs that survivors deserve it or were responsible for it or must have wanted it. I mean, we hear just awful things. And so calling in those attitudes, those beliefs, those comments is kind of our first step of like, ooh, but if we laugh along or we brush it off or just don't say anything, that's us being complicit in those beliefs.
Mhm. That in the current news cycle, there's obviously a lot about victims of sex trafficking and sex violence. And one of the things that I think the victims weren't believed because most people thought that's just too outrageous. There's no way that could happen. That is you're talking about powerful people and there's no way that could happen. So I think you're right. It's important to believe the victims, but what happens if somebody doesn't believe the victim?
Yeah, I mean, it is just devastating for survivors. I mean, survivors can experience very intense depression. They're much less likely to report, or if they do report, it's not picked up, it's dismissed, charges are not picked up. They're much less likely to get help from a counselor, much less likely to call a hotline. And then, they're also, the more people who believe that survivors are lying, the more people who perpetrate the sexual assault know they can get away with it. Right? I mean, it's so sad to see that a lot of society is on the side of people causing the harm.
Absolutely. Well, looking ahead this month, what programs, events, or resources is the Bridge Over Troubled Waters offering to support education, prevention, and survivor advocacy in the community?
Yes, so we definitely want everyone to know we do have a 24-hour hotline. We're available 24 hours a day. If survivors want to call in crisis or just have questions, want to access support, all our services are free for counseling, legal advocacy, safety planning. How do I leave? Maybe I'm experiencing sexual violence in a relationship or an abusive relationship. We also have a really fun event on Friday night coming up at the Rec Room Houston. It's an improv theater, and we are getting a collection of stories from women. It's not all survivor stories. Some of it is just fun, silly stories. And it's a space for us to come, laugh, connect, heal together. And I know we have our flyer that we're showing in this video, so please join us. It's only $15, but if you submit a story, it's free. So we hope to see you out on Friday night just for a night of connection and joy.
Right. Well, thank you, Jessica Bellant, Prevention and Education Director from the Bridge Over Troubled Waters. We'll have all your organization's info in our post after the show.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jessica. And after a quick commercial break, I'll return with some announcements.
Here in Houston, we're always planning the next step.
That step starts at Houston City College.
From caring
To creating.
to coding.
HCC is the college Houston needs. Take your next step here.
Welcome back. Well, here are some important news notes we think you should know. Well, join us for the first annual Through Our Lens Film Fest, an evening of short films that invite you into stories and most people never get to tell. Hosted by Eagle Spark in partnership with the Vast Bridges to Pathways initiative, this film fest highlights the work of students from the Vast Pathways Bridge to Success program, a community of neurodiverse learners using storytelling to share perspectives we often don't get to see. And that's happening April 29th from 6 to 9 p.m. at the West Loop campus. And join us for a powerful morning of community celebration and workforce impact as part of National Apprenticeship Week, a nationwide event that highlights the value of registered apprenticeship in strengthening America's economy and expanding career pathways. National Apprenticeship Week is a national celebration convened by the U.S. Department of Labor, where employers, apprentices, industry leaders, educators, workforce partners, and government agencies come together to showcase the success and value of apprenticeship programs in developing a highly skilled workforce. This event is a perfect opportunity to connect, learn, and celebrate the role apprenticeships play in driving business success and growing career opportunities in high-demand industries. And that is happening April 30th from 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. at the West Loop campus. Well, Houston City College welcomes you to join the Veterans Community Resource Fair sponsored by the City of Houston Office of Veterans and Military Affairs. The event is dedicated to honoring those who've served and to ensuring that veteran service members and their families have access to the tools, services, and networks they need to thrive in civilian life. On-site representatives ready to answer questions, help with applications, and guide you through available programs will be on site. Networking opportunities to connect with other veterans, community partners, support groups, and service providers will also be available. The fair is April 29th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at our South Campus. And HCC's Summer 2026 registration is officially open. Take advantage of flexible start dates beginning May 11th, and get ahead this summer. Don't wait, secure your classes today and move closer to your goals. Register today to get ahead of your education. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you for joining us for Up to the Minute. We'll see you next time.
Here in Houston, we're always planning the next step.
That step starts at Houston City College.
From caring
To creating.
to coding.
HCC is the college Houston needs. Take your next step here.